Hi, this is Marwa, and today we have another video about complex numbers. We had 3 videos before, one for an introduction to complex numbers, one was adding and subtracting complex numbers, our last one was multiplying complex numbers. Today we'll be dividing complex numbers, and our next video will be about how to see complex numbers in SAT questions. Now, today we'll be dividing complex numbers, and we have 2 questions here. One of them is, what is each quotient? And we have 9 plus 12i divided by 3i. Now, remember, we have discussed that we are going to be using conjugates if we need to. Now, in this case here, I do not have a conjugate. However, all that we'll be thinking about that how do we multiply both numerator and denominator by a number that can help me simplify the question I have. What do I mean by that? Now I have here 9 plus 12i, and I want to divide it by 3i. I'm going to be multiplying both numerator and denominator by the conjugate. The conjugate of 3i here is negative 3i. So let's multiply both by negative 3i and see what happens. When you multiply both numerator and denominator by the same value, you did not change the value of your question. When we multiply by the numerator, we are going to be using distributive property. So 9 times negative 3i is negative 27i, and that's plus. And when we have 12i times negative 3i, this is going to be negative 36i squared. So that's for our numerator. What about denominator? 3i times negative 3i is going to be negative 9i squared. Now, we did agree that I squared is equal to negative 1, and every time I see I squared, I'm going to substitute by negative 1. So here we have negative 27i plus negative 36 multiplied by negative 1. I'm writing this in detail so you understand where each step comes from. And we have negative 9 multiplied by negative 1. And now let's simplify. So I have negative 27i, negative 36 times negative 1 is positive 36. I have here negative 9 times negative 1, which is 9. Actually, you can simplify. Negative 27i divided by 9 is negative 3i, and positive 36 divided by 9 is positive 4, and if I want to write this in standard form, it's going to be 4 minus 3i, and this is the quotient of the question. So what did we do? When we want to divide by an imaginary number, we actually use its conjugate to change the denominator into a real number to be able to simplify. So my main goal is changing the denominator into a real number. If we change the denominator into a real number, it will make it much easier to simplify. Now let's look at our next question. I have 2 plus 3i divided by 1 minus 4i. I'm going to be multiplying again both numerator and denominator by the conjugate. Which conjugate? The conjugate of the denominator. We need to simplify the denominator. I want to change the denominator into a real number. This is why we choose the conjugate of the denominator. So I have here 1 minus 4i. Its conjugate is 1 plus 4i. When we multiply the denominator by a value, we have to multiply the numerator by the same value, which is 1 plus 4i. Now, this is going to be a little longer. We're going to be using distributive property, both numerator and denominator. So I'm going to start by 2 times 1, which is 2. 2 times 4i, which is 8i. Then we have 3i times 1, which is 3i. And 3i times 4i, which is 12i squared. Done with the numerator. Let's check the denominator now. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 4i times 1 is negative 4i. Actually, you can skip writing this because they are conjugates, but I'm going to write them just to make sure that everybody understands. Then we have 1 times positive 4i, which is 4i, and negative 4i times positive 4i, which is going to be negative 16i squared. Now let's combine like terms. In the numerator, I have 8i and 3i, which is 11i. And we have 2 plus, we know that this is going to be negative 1, so positive 2 plus negative 12, positive 2 plus negative 12, it's going to be negative 10. Now here, these will cancel each other, and I'm going to be having 1 plus 16 when I squared becomes negative 1. So 1 plus 16 is going to be 17. We can leave it like that, or we're going to write negative 10 over 17 plus 11 over 17i. I just tried to cancel one of the steps where I'm going to write this again after combining like terms and substituting for I squared equal negative 1. Now, as we have seen, when we want to divide complex numbers, all we think about is changing the denominator into a real number to make it easier to simplify. I hope this has been helpful for you. Now you try and practice. You have 3 questions here. Try to use the conjugate to simplify the denominator in every time. And once you're done with that, you will find the quotient of each question. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you so much for watching.